Hey guys, I'm Krimh, drummer of Septicflesh and Daath, and you're watching Richard Metal Fan.
Hey, what's up, guys? Episode 248 of Richard Metal Fan Interviews, calling from Zoom, and I have the honor and the privilege to speak with the legendary Krimh from Septicflesh and Daath. How are you doing today, man? Glad to have you on my show.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm doing good. I'm a little bit tired because we have a time difference. And usually I'm already in the bed because I go to sleep early. But it's a pleasure to talk with you. So let's get rolling.
Anytime, man, anytime. So, kind of the format of the show is I want to talk about like your musical history and sort of do a speed run of your discography, but take me back to young Krimh. So, kind of growing up in Austria, what were the first bands that got you into metal and what made you want to start playing the drums?
Probably who really made me want to play the drums was Joey Jordison from Slipknot. That was for sure also the first metal band I would say that really got me hooked into that genre. But the fascination for drums in general has been always there since I was a baby. Um, you know, I grew up with 70s rock music and with all those drummers, John Bonham, Ian Bass, and yeah, so I grew up with this kind of music. But just when I was about a teenager, I had the chance to get my first drum set because I grew up in a flat, so it was impossible to play in the flat drums, and I needed a rehearsal space, and so I was like maybe 13, 14 years old when I bought my first drum set. And it was about the same time when I started to listen to metal music. So I would go to the record store, and I just remember seeing self-titled Slipknot album in the shelf, and I was just fascinated by the album cover, and I would just take the CD and listen to it, and I was listening especially the first song,
Sick.
Sick, exactly. And I was like repeating that, here comes the pain, and
Yeah.
the the riffs, and how everything slammed afterwards. And so I bought this album after all, and then it all started. Then I got into more heavier stuff, and of course, yeah, as I said, Joey Jordison, he was the kind of drummer that really wanted me to like made me want to play metal drums.
Yeah, because for me, Slipknot was like one of my gateways to it. Because funny enough, my first two concerts ever were Slipknot, and I was lucky I got to see them with the original nine members.
Yeah. When was the first time you saw them?
It was 2008 at Mayhem Fest. I was 14 years old, and my dad took me, and that was awesome.
So okay, because I saw them first time 2002.
Holy
Uh,
shit, during
so
Iowa.
yeah, exactly. I think I saw one of the last Iowa shows before they had a longer break before Subliminal Versus, and then I saw them 2004, 2005, and then again 2008 with Joey. Yeah, so there was like four times that I saw them, but definitely the one in 2002 was quite an experience. I would have wished to see them with the first album because, it's
Yeah.
such an amazing album. But unfortunately, I think they didn't come over to Austria back then.
Yeah, I would have loved to seen Slipknot during like the self-titled days, but too bad I was only like 5 years old. The curse, I wish I would have been born 10 years
Yeah,
earlier.
you gotta talk to your parents about that.
Yeah, yeah, because I know, funny enough, when they were in Atlanta at Ozfest '99, that was actually where they shot the music video for Spit Out, where they also had the parody of parodying The Shining.
Yeah, that's like legendary stuff. That's exactly what I would wish to have seen. But I was also still too young to appreciate that kind of music. But yeah, I'm happy that I saw them during Iowa, and also Subliminal Versus. It was a great life experience during
Y-
that 2004 2005 area.
Nice. And so I was like doing my research on Metal Archives. I believe your first band, kind of jumping into it, was Thorns of Ivy. Tell me about that, because I'm digging deep. Like nobody ever talks about this stuff.
Well, it was one of my first bands. It was one of my first a bit more serious bands. I had some school bands, and I had a bunch of other projects, but Thorns of Avi was an Austrian, or is an Austrian, like black metal band from my area. So I played a little bit with those guys, but unfortunately I had to go to Poland because I had to play with Decapitated. So yeah,
Yeah.
The guys are still around, but it hasn't there hasn't been a lot of new music coming out. I'm super close with the vocalist Silva Raciel. He recorded vocals for my latest solo album, The Eternal Return. So I'm really close contact with him. But yeah, I'm not a part of the band anymore for quite some time.
Yeah. But I know you also do session work because I know in 2008 you recorded drums for Monstill with Am End.
Say it again because the connection was bad.
I also know you do like session work because I know in 2008 you recorded drums for Monstill with the Am End album.
Mondstille. Yes, this is how you say it. Now I understand.
Moonstitty. Forgive me if I
Exactly.
fuck up any pronunciations.
It's all fine. It's German. You don't have to. Mondstille means basically moon silence, if you say it like that. Yeah, exactly. I recorded an album with them. So this is like also a black metal band, and the guitar player was also playing with Thorns of Ivy back in the day, but they have more like acoustic influences. And I also recorded some new material, which unfortunately never got released. Yeah, but so yeah, I did that exactly. You did some good research.
Oh yeah. And then of course you end up joining Decapitating and released probably one of my favorite comeback albums, Carnival is Forever. I love this album. Like, how did you end up joining Decapitated?
Well, first of all, thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed the album. Yeah, it was a crazy thing because so I started YouTube back in 2007, and I've always recorded myself playing drums, and I learned how to play drums by playing to my favorite songs, and I use this as a as a practice mm, routine, or more or less to see how I play and check if everything is correct. And then I discovered YouTube, and so I was like, hey, I can upload actually all those videos on YouTube because I think it's awesome. There is a bunch of drummers that do that, but not so many. And yeah, the vocalist of Thorns of Ivy, the funny thing is he introduced me to Septicflesh with Communion album, and he also introduced me to Decapitated with the Organic Hallucinosis album. And so I was heavily listening to that album and practicing that stuff. And I did a cover of Invisible Control, and I dropped it on YouTube. And so I finished school, and then I was about to either go study sports and become a sports teacher, or actually study drums. But I actually wanted to become a musician, and then I got a message on MySpace back in the day from Vogue saying that he has seen my drum cover of Invisible Control, and actually Vitek, his brother who tragically passed away just before that during a car crash, he has also seen that video, which he told me afterwards. And he asked me if I would be up to, join some kind of audition, because he has a bunch of drummers in mind, and if I would like to come to Poland for a jam session. And I was like, okay, that means actually this whole YouTube thing opened up a new door for myself to go into the business in a way. And I also had, before Decapitated, I also had a Thomas, the guitar player of Hypocrisy. He wrote to me. He was actually the first guy from abroad who was like, "Hey, I have a metal project. You want to play with me?" So it also happened through YouTube. And yeah, so YouTube, thanks to YouTube and MySpace, I ended up being in Poland and jamming with
Yeah.
Vogue in
Yeah.
2009. And he was like, okay, you have a lot of work to do, but I think you're the guy. You want to do it? Let's do it.
Yeah, I remember hearing you talk about that on Garza's podcast, and that's really an interesting story. And that's pretty much how I discovered you through your YouTube videos, because I remember seeing that Slipknot video, and that's like your most viewed video with like 5 million views, which is nuts.
It has already 5 million. I haven't checked.
Yeah, I think it was the eyeless one.
Yeah, that I thought first that the People Equal Shit has more, but Isla's topped it. Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, and this is still like a great album. I can't wait to see you and Decapitated and Septicflesh like in a few weeks. It's gonna be awesome.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that tour. It's gonna be my first US tour. or actually for Septicflesh, it's the first US tour since 2019. You
Yeah,
know,
which I was there at the show at the in Sepirum. That was the last time I saw
exactly. Yeah,
Septic Flesh.
perfect. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
but
now
that
we're coming back and with my old band together. So it's
yeah,
awesome.
it's funny way you're opening up for your old band or co-headlining with your old band, I should say.
Exactly. I was actually hoping that one day we will be able to play some shows with Decapitated because,
Yeah. And here you
though
are.
yeah, here I am, I mean, I'm no longer in the band, but I'm cool with the guys, and um I've been talking with Rasta forever that hey, we finally have to play a show together, and surprisingly, we never meet each other on the road. I don't know how this is possible. They're playing all the time, we're playing all the time, but it's the first time this actually happens, and it's amazing that we have this co-bill tour, and also having Cataclysm and the Legion there. I feel like it's a very strong package, very versatile. So it's everyone has like death metal influences, but everyone plays it differently. And so I'm hoping for good shows, a diverse crowd, and yeah, looking forward to play again finally in the States and North America after such a long break.
Yeah. And then I know you also do like the solo stuff. Like you also had the Explorer and Krimh in 13 and 14. So what inspired you to like do like the solo thing?
I was always into being creative and writing my own music. So I started to play guitar roughly around the same time I started to play drums. But you can tell that I spend way more times on drums, obviously, because I'm not really a good guitar player. I use it more as a tool for, if I have an idea in my head, then I just take the guitar and try to make it happen somehow. But I have no fucking clue what is going on. And I rarely pick up the guitar. And yeah, so like we talk about 2006, 7-ish, I started already writing own songs, experimenting with that. And after I left Decapitated, I knew that I have to do something. And I had no band, but I still wanted to do music. So that's why I started to made my first solo album, Explore. And yeah, people enjoyed it. And to be honest, this whole solo project thing is 100% for my personal creativity, because there's no label involved, there's no one else involved. I do everything myself. But I like to have that freedom. Nobody tells you what to do and shall you release something or not. I do whatever I want. There might be another album, there might be not. It's just whenever I feel like I have this itch, I need to be creative, then my solo project is the perfect spot for that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I agree. And I also so love like because you also play guitar and bass. Do you ever like find like playing like other instruments allows you to like express yourself like differently creatively?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, drums are definitely number one, and it's the instrument that resonates the most with me, and I feel the most comfortable. Um, but it's a rhythmical instrument, and I'm also really into melodies, and I need the guitar and bass and other instruments to do that. Even though my guitar playing is still quite rhythmically based. But yeah, it is a different thing, because I like to play with a lot of layers. It has like some post-rock influences where you just basically have multiple guitar layers, kind of keep looping the same thing, and you just build up like this sound, the sound cloud, or however you want to say that. So I really enjoy those spacious riffs and layers of guitars, and it's a different expression, definitely. Yeah,
Yeah.
because drums cannot really recreate that.
Yeah. And also this year does mark 10 years of another of a, like a session work thing because I know you also did the Juggler Knot by Redemptor. Tell me about that because it's just very
That's
fucking technical sounding.
Oh yeah, I remember that album very well, because it's a bunch of my friends from Poland. Poland has a super strong metal scene. They have so many bands there and so many phenomenal musicians, and especially for black and death metal, I feel like they're one of the strongest.
Like
Kind
Behemoth and Hate and stuff like that.
Yeah, but even more like underground bands. There are so many black death metal bands that have a specific sound. I would say Polish sound. They sound very raw and super aggressive and fast as hell. And yeah, so Redemptor was a session job, and I just, I was free. I had no band. And so they gave me the material, and I was like, okay, sounds interesting. But I remember it took me quite a lot of time to really get into this material. But it was a fun session. I recorded it in Warsaw, and yeah, it was quite challenging material. But I'm very happy about this album. Um, I think we did a great job, and the guys are also still happy about it. They keep writing, "Yeah, it was so awesome recording with you," and it's one of our favorite albums we've done. So it's awesome to be part of different projects, being a session drummer.
Yeah. And then also that same year, 2014, you worked with Eldvog with, of course, with the great Ola England from The Haunted, of course, killing it on YouTube. So what's it like working with him?
One song, which you're supposed to do more, but hey, he is extremely busy, and I'm super busy too. And
Busy Boys.
yeah, exactly. And it was an experiment. It was really fun. I was like, hey, let's do something together. Okay, sure. And then he came up with that riffs, and I wrote some drum stuff to that. And then eventually I got into Septicflesh, and he had some
Yeah.
other things to do, and that's why we
Yeah.
we haven't had a
Yeah,
chance.
but
But
we're getting there because I know before that you did Manège Noir in 2015.
Manège Noir.
Manège Noir. Tell me about that.
Manège Noir was another project, an Austrian project with a bunch of friends of mine, which was this really like low-tuned 8-string aggressive EP that we did, and with some political lyrics and stuff. And yeah, it's an Austrian project, and we wanted to keep it as like this little EP. There were some ideas to maybe do something more, but again, too busy, too many things at once. But yeah, working with Ola, it was cool. I actually met him now at the NAMM show back in January, and he was like, "Hey, I haven't seen you in a long time," and which is true. I haven't seen this guy for like 7 years, something like that. And yeah, he was like, "We should do another song." I said, "Yeah, we should do." So maybe eventually it will happen.
Yeah. But then you end up joining Septicflesh. So how did you end up joining the band?
Um, yeah, so again, I had no band back then. Like we talk about the year 2014. So I did Behemoth in 2013 as a session drummer, and so got of course really close with the guys from Behemoth, and or like a friendship and whatnot. And in 2014, I still helped out Vesania. That's Orion's second band. And after that, I had again nothing really on my plans. And so I think Nergal actually told me that, hey, I have friends in Greece on the band Septicflesh, and they're looking for a drummer. And yeah, so again, through some connections, I had a little talk with Christos, and yeah, that's how I got into the band. I
Yeah.
played them some videos, and they were like, "It's good stuff."
Yeah. Yeah, but tell about making Codex Omega your first record with the band. So how was the writing process, recording process like that, being that was your first record with Septicflesh?
Yeah, I was surprised, how we wrote that album. You have to understand that I was sitting constantly in Austria, and the guys were sitting in Athens, and we were sending ideas back and forth, basically through Gmail. We actually never really had a video chat, whatever. So we would send each other riffs and song ideas, and I would come up with some demo drums, send it back and forward, and so we were emailing each other ideas. It was a quite chaotic process, and I have no idea how the songs could be finished the way they are. But I learned afterwards when we recorded Modern Primitive, that's probably the way the band is working. Like a lot of songwriters, a lot of, everyone writes their own songs in a way. So we have Seth writing his own songs, Soterius writing his own songs, Christos as well. I write some riffs and drums, and it's all being thrown in one pile, and then things are being chopped off and whatnot. So yeah, it was quite a interesting experience writing with those guys. And then of course my first recording session with Jens Bogren when I recorded Codex Omega. That was pretty cool because Jens is a legendary producer, and I learned a lot from him from that session. And yeah, I really enjoyed recording this album. I feel like it's a very strong album.
Yeah, and this was actually the album cycle. I remember the first time I saw Septicflesh was you did that tour with Dark Funeral. I think was that like your first tour in the States, and what was it like seeing America for the first time?
No, I actually have toured with Decapitated before in the States.
Oh,
Quite.
right, I almost forgot.
Yeah, exactly. So I've been with Decapitated. I did Meshuggah tour with them. I did a tour with Flesh God at Decrepit Birth, and I did Summer Slaughter tour in 2010. That was my first ever US tour. Decapitated, headlining Summer Slaughter tour. Faceless was on there. Vital Remains, Animals as Leaders, The Red Court. Who else?
Yeah, I
It
think
was
my boys in Carnifex were also on that bill.
exactly Carnifex was on there, and who else was on there? Wheel of Maya, I believe.
Yeah, that still that has to be a stacked bill.
Oh man, every day 10 bands plus some local supports, and you play at the end, you want to shoot yourself, I can tell you.
Yeah, yeah, it almost feels like a little like European festival in America.
Exactly. But it
Yeah,
happens every day. It was an experience, because US tours are quite different to Europe. The distances are much longer. Um, how to say, in Europe you have like actual catering being given to you. Someone is cooking for you, have snacks and all kind of stuff. In the States, it's like, here's your buyout, go grab yourself something at a gas station. You don't have showers over there, which I found crazy. You have Venice with like for 1,000 people, but you have no shower. And in Europe, you go into a punk venue for 50 people and they have a shower, or they will organize one somehow. So it's different. It's a very different way of touring, even though, the shows in the States are always great. And it's a really important market, of course. And that's why we do enjoy coming back. And we're really looking forward to this one now.
yeah. And then I know also in 2017 you did the Era of Theranos by Nargaroth. Tell me about that because that's some fucking sick black metal. As me being a fan of the black metal and shit.
Yeah, that was again a session job, like a friend of mine, he's a very famous YouTuber right now. Um, he used to play also in Belficor for some time, and now he's doing his own solo stuff, and he's one of the top shred guitar players out there, pursuing his YouTube career. And he actually wrote most of that album, and he asked if I want to record it, and so I said, okay, sure. So yeah, it was a session job. That's it.
Yeah, I know you also did more session work because in 2018, with the shirt you're wearing, Harakiri for the Sky. All right, tell me about like that because I know you played drums on their last the first two albums as well as the re-recording of the two albums prior.
Exactly. I think I recorded every album except one, which still has a drum computer on. But yeah, so I really enjoyed working with them, and I guess that's why I've been asked to record a bunch of albums for them. Because the songs are super long, like 8 to 10 minutes or even longer, which is a bit of pain in the ass to remember everything. But it's nothing too complicated, and it's the kind of music I really enjoy listening to. It has this like post black metal stuff which I really enjoy listening to, and I'm very happy about the guys because I feel it's a strong band from Austria, and they're really pushing it, and they're getting out there playing more and more shows. So it's great to see some more Austrian bands being internationally recognized. So I also recorded recently with them in January. I recorded their upcoming album at Christian Kohle's studio, Kohlekeller studio. So I did another album. So let me calculate how much would that be? the last two albums, then so it's my fifth album with Harakiri.
Nice. And then more session work because 2019 you hooked up with the with Marrow. You did the Reading the Bones EP in 2019, which I heard is just like one guy, Keith Marrow. So how did he hit you up to be like, hey, play drums on my stuff?
Yeah, Keith. I mean, I know Keith for quite some time. He's also a YouTuber in a way, and he's this very phenomenal guitar player. He writes some evil, evil riffs, and I recorded his first, or one of not his first album, but I recorded one before. Um, Again, very complicated stuff. You know, guitar music is usually the kind of session work where you know, okay, it's gonna get tricky because they write some pretty crazy drum stuff. It was challenging, but I enjoyed it. And then he asked me again to do, I think it was in 2021 or 22. I recorded another EP for him. So yeah, Keith is awesome. You know, a phenomenal guitar player, really cool dude.
Yeah. Then also that same year you joined up with your fellow Austrians in Ebon Crown and you did the Apocrypha in 2019. Tell me about that.
Um, that was, I actually don't remember how many songs we did. It was not too many. Man, I did so much that I don't remember everything. But that was more like a session job, and it was just it was an album. There was never, I think, planned to be any live shows
It
or
was like
anything.
a 5 song EP.
Exactly. So I think the project never was supposed to be played live, so it was just a studio thing.
Nice. And then I know like in 2020 you joined up with that Act of Denial, Nile from Croatia. So how'd you end up hooking up with them and playing on Negative in 21?
Yeah, there was again, you know, a session job, and I got asked to record drums for. And the cool thing is that the lineup is really, you know, it has quite some uh, important people on there. You know,
Like Steve DiGiorgio, Bjorn from Soilwork, a lot of great musicians.
you name it. You know, and it's just fun music because it's like this old school or like this melodic death metal Swedish influence. You know, it has this Gothenburg Swedish melodic death metal style vibe, and it was fun. It was a fun session. Um, and they have a new album, I think, being in the making. They have a new song out with my buddy Eugene Rybchenko playing drums on a really fast one.
Yeah, my homie right there.
Yeah, exactly. So they're gonna have some new stuff on there
Cool.
coming.
And then, of course, the last Septicflesh album, Modern Primitive. I love this album. This is definitely one of my favorite albums from 2022. So, being that this was your second record, did you feel like more comfortable and did you contribute more than on Codex Omega?
Mm, I didn't feel too comfortable with that album because it was during a very crazy time. You know, this whole pandemic season, it was a lot of unknown territory, and we had a lot of time to work on this album. And I found it very stressful to write this album because we having so much time, we were changing a lot of ideas, and I felt like it's a never-ending story. Um, and so it was a weird time. You know, in the end, it worked out well, and I feel like it's a strong album as well. It has more of it doesn't have so many brutal songs on it. It's I think more of hit songs and more bombastic songs. But it was great to work again with Jens on this record. So I was going again to Stockholm to record drums with him.
Yeah, it still kicks ass. And being as it's now been 2 years since Modern Primitive, have you all started working on the next Septicflesh album? Like, what's the status with that?
Yeah, it's funny. Like we get this question constantly. I just got asked this question before that. Even though this album is out already a couple of years, and we still haven't had the chance to tour with that album. You know, we had one European tour. Now we have a second one this year. We have a first US tour coming out now. We haven't started yet writing new material, but I feel like it has to happen soon. So it's just a matter of time that we start to collect some riffs. Yeah, because you know, like for us, this year is the first time that we come back to some sort of normality in a way that we have a European tour, a US tour, a couple of summer festivals. Um, and like I said, we haven't had the chance yet to present this album as much as we wanted to, but we also aware of the fact that we have to start writing soon. So no riffs yet, but it will happen soon.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to that because Septicflesh is just so damn sick.
Thank you, man.
Anytime, anytime. Anyway, we're all got two more stuff to talk about. We got another session work that same year you did Unhuman by Nightborn. Tell me about that.
True. Yeah, all of the stuff I did.
Yeah, you could thank Metal Archives for that shit.
Probably did even more. Yeah, Nightborn, exactly. There was a thrash metal project from Turkey. Exactly. Um, I was not used to thrash metal that much, but I needed some time to get into it. But it was cool, yeah.
Yeah. And then, of course, year you end up joining Daath from my home state of Georgia. So how'd you end up hooking up with Eyal and Sean and everybody?
Yeah, so that was quite an interesting story because I mean, maybe not so interesting, but actually the whole connection came through URIM Academy of Eel, and there was a course on there with Jens Bogren, a nail the mix course for Martyr, one of our Septicflesh songs. And then I got in touch with Eel, and he asked me about session jobs, and because he knows that I'm a session drummer, and he was like, "Hey, I have a couple of riffs and song ideas," and he has this crazy idea that if I want, we can maybe try to write 2 or 3 songs and see how people react. And if people like it, we maybe continue. If not, we just did it as an experiment. So we wrote those songs, and then eventually, Metal Blade Records got hooked and was like, "Hey, we actually like that stuff," and all of a sudden we had a record deal. And so, I feel like it's a project that is being done step by step. And then we started to write the full album. So last year, beginning of last year, we were really heavily into finishing the album, writing more songs, and I went again to Jens Bogren. So it's the third session I did with him last summer, and we recorded the full album. It's gonna be called The Deceivers. It's gonna come out on the 3rd of May. And yeah, it's quite a challenging material. It's very dense, let's put it this way. It's some of the songs are already out to listen to, and you can tell there's a lot of guitar stuff, there's a lot of drum stuff, a lot of vocals. It's more is more kind of style. So yeah, response is great, and really looking forward to releasing that album and see
Yeah.
what people think.
Yeah. And when you joined Daath, were you like a fan of the previous albums, like The Hinderers, The Concealer, there's self-titled, and even the first album, Futility? Were you trying to like play it to how it was on the albums, or were you kind of like allowed to like bring like your own like style and add your own little spin to the songs?
I was familiar with some of the older stuff. I remember going in the record store when I was like a teenager, and we're heavily into all those Roadrunner record bands, and I would go and check out some of the albums and listen to it. And then I forgot about them somehow, and then they disappeared. And now I was like, when Eel told me like he's the guitar player of Daath, I was like, oh yeah, wait a second, I remember that project. Um, and speaking about you know this album, the drum parts, I did most of the drum parts. Eel would send over some basic ideas, and I would just rewrite them so they fit better my style. And I also chopped up some of the song structures and sent it over. So it's not just that I did drums. I tried to be also involved in song structures and all this kind of stuff. And I feel like this album is really a team effort. So it's not only one guy. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And what is like the chemistry between like now there's like six of you is like EL, Sean, and of course your fellow Austrian Raphael. So how is that
Yeah.
the whole chemistry like, and being as the rest of the band's based in America, and like you and Raph are from Austria?
Funny thing is, the first time we met all together was in January this year. We have never been in the same room. We all just talked through, online, and it was interesting to also practice together the first time. But it felt actually good. It was like everyone did their homework, and we started rehearsing the songs, and it was like Okay, actually, it's not as shit as we thought. It's quite the opposite. So the chemistry was cool. Um, it's definitely challenging being so spread apart and also being all, you know, part of other projects, or everyone has their other, you know, life. Let's put it this way. But we knew about that, and you know, we don't want to stress ourselves about it. We just see how things are going. But yeah, it was a good chemistry with the guys.
Jeez, nice. And is there like any like tours that you're gonna do with Doth? Maybe a show at the Masquerade in Atlanta?
I have not heard any plans yet official. We are in the talks of maybe some live shows, but at this point, you know, it's the engine has to kind of start
Or
working
start
again.
running?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you know, and, again, like me being in Septicflesh and the other guys also have a lot on their mind. We have to see how schedule wise this is possible, but I think we're aiming more towards specific shows rather than like super long tours. But yeah, step one step at a time.
Yeah. Yeah, and like you played with so many bands going from Septic Flesh to Doth and like even with Decapitated. So how different of a mind frame is it depending on the projects? Do you have to like be in a certain like headspace depending on the bands, or do you have like free reign to like bring like your own kind of style with whatever bands or projects that you're involved with?
I always try to bring my own flavor to every project I'm in, but definitely I have to be in this kind of, you know, headspace or whatever you were calling it. Like I have to get time to adjust to each project playing wise, because every band has its own sound, has its own tempo zones and certain techniques that are required. And so it's for me not so easy to just switch between different projects. So um, I always need a little bit to get into it. But yeah, when I play in Decapitated, Carnival is Forever, I feel like you can hear it's Krimh playing. When you hear the Septicflesh albums, you will hear also the same DNA on there. So I feel with all the project I have been involved, same goes for Harakiri. For me, it was always important to have a character and to just like be recognized that okay, Krimh is playing that. I don't know exactly what it is. Maybe it's certain beats I do or little fills here and there. But for me, it was always important to be recognized on all the material I do.
Awesome. And I got two more questions for you talking about like your drumming. I mean, because of course as a drummer, because usually the drummer's job is to like keep the tempo and the beat, otherwise you'll just turn into a bloodbath. But as a drummer, do you need to like hear like what the guitars are doing in order to lay down your parts, or do you usually have like a whole drum part written and the rest of the band writes according to that?
No, yeah, I always need a riff. You know, I'm not the kind of guy that will present the drum beat, except it's something very orchestrated. It's a recognizable pattern. Then I would maybe introduce this to the guys. But usually it starts with the riff, with a bunch of melodies, and then I will start from there, making multiple drum beats for those riffs, just to see maybe a blast beat works, maybe a groovy part, maybe double kick section or some tom grooves, and I build it from there on. So this is the way I work.
Yeah, do you ever worried like you have like a great beat, but then you hear like the riff and it just sounds like a bit off time?
Yeah, sure, but then you have to swallow your ego and just go with what works the best. You know, it's not about showing off your drumming skills. It's about listening back and forth. And that's why I enjoy making demos, or I feel like it's very important to make demos, to just hear the songs in its most um, final stage before hitting the studio, so that you actually know what works and what not. And it's not the first time that I changed the drum groove to something simpler and more steady compared to fireworks, you know, on the drums, because I never want to be like a show off drummer. I want to support the song, right?
Yeah.
This is very important.
Yeah. And then the final question I want to ask you is talking about like your gear, because I'm always curious like what kind of like good drums that you play in terms of like heads, like skins, cymbals, pedals, and sticks and all that. And I know you also have a little electronic kit in the back. So what's like your go-to throne and stuff to play drums?
Yeah, I play Tama drums for quite some time already, so I really enjoy playing the drum sets. The Tama drums, I play Mindel cymbals since 2010, and have Remo skins. I play ProMark sticks, and my pedals are Charger Copito. These are Polish custom pedals. I was one of the first endorsers back in 2010 when the company started, and they're probably the most durable piece of equipment on my drum set because it's so crazy built, like military style almost. Um, yeah, and I use Foot Blaster triggers. These are small triggers that are sitting on the pedal instead of the head. And I also have, because you mentioned my electronic drum set, I do have a drum software called Krimh drums, which I together with Borgren Digital. So again, Jens Borgren, and actually that's the same drum sound you hear on Modern Primitive because it was sampled at the same recording session. So it's the same drum set, the same setup. And once we're finished with the album recording, we sampled this drum set for like 20 hours or even more. I sampled it. Every hit you hear, I recorded it. So yeah.
Yeah, nice. So that before we go, I just want to thank you, Krim, for this interview. It's great to finally be able to talk with you. It's just anything else with the Flesh and Daath that you would like to plug. I'm looking forward to seeing you on the tour at Decapitate in a few weeks. I have my ticket for the show in Atlanta. So just anything else you'd like to plug for either of your projects.
Yeah, you should come to the shows, guys, because it's our first tour since a long time. It's gonna be a great party, so come over, enjoy some death metal. And yeah, once the Daath album comes out, The Deceivers, remember, 3rd of May, you can also pre-order that at daathofficial.com. Comes out at Metal Blade Records. It will be awesome if you go check it out as well. Yeah, and then just see you on the road somewhere.
Yeah, awesome. So thank you, Krim. It's just any final words you also want to say to the viewers that are watching this to close this out.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for staying with us till the end of this interview. I hope you enjoyed all the nerdy talk, and thanks for researching all the session jobs and small things I have done in my career. So yeah, thanks for having me.
Awesome. So everybody, Krim from Septicflesh and Daath. See you next time.